Hello and welcome to the ZiaWoolz StudioBuzz podcast. My name is Doug and I'm coming to you from Albuquerque in New Mexico, where we are currently having Balloon Fiesta again, finally. Oh my goodness, it seems like life is maybe slowly going back to normal. Let's just hope so. Another piece of normal life was my visit to the Wool Festival in Taos last weekend, which was, of course, as to be expected, fabulous. And if you are interested in a few glimpses of how it looked like in Taos, stick around until the end when I'm going to put in a few pictures. I hope you're going to enjoy those. And I have a cat right here who is sitting in the wool. Funny guy. I think he needs some love. Look at him. I wish he could have my perspective. Well, where do I start? I want to start off with the one thing that I got finished that is kind of ridiculous because it's only two buttons that were missing. And I just went, gave it a swish through the water, through some washing water, and added these two buttons. That was the sweater that I made for my friends in Germany for their little girl. And I think the buttons are fantastic because they pick up the color of the other section there. I did make a mistake when I started knitting on this. I completely forgot to put in a buttonhole in the ribbing where it should have gone. And now I thought, maybe I should put a little snap closure here. And, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Every time I pick it up and I look at it, I think it's going to be fine just as it is. Yeah. And yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to send that off to Germany soon. And my goddaughter is a baby. She will not fit into this. I mean, this would eat her, but hopefully her big sister is going to be able to wear this. So this is the sweater. And in case you wonder, there's project notes on Ravelry, and my name is Paperdag on Ravelry. I cannot even recall the name of this yarn. I can never remember this yarn, but I made up the pattern. There was no pattern for this. I just wanted to make a top-down sweater and use up some leftovers and yeah, just have a nice color combination. That's the little sweater. I'm glad that's finally done. And then, what is next? I don't know where to start. Well, let's do this. Since I've just been in Taos, I'm going to tell you that as a surprise for my friend, everybody got a little goodie bag because they just all mean a lot to me, and also those who were not able to come. You know who you are. And I was inspired to to come up with a new Halloween colorway, which I named Witch Hunter. And each one of my sock knitting friends that came for the weekend in Taos got half a skein with a mini skein. So we all are going to have identical socks. And mine are in this funny Halloween bag, glow in the dark. And here are my socks. So I got to tell you, this skein of yarn has 4 ounces. So half a skein is 2 ounces. That's pretty generous. That's 60 plus grams. and the mini skein was 20 grams. But I'm a little bit uncertain if I'm not going to run into a problem, because I feel like this is shrinking a little bit faster than I feel it should. So I still have to weigh it, and then I'm going to figure out if I will also do an orange toe. I wish I had more of this yarn base, my Taos base, in as a bare yarn in stock, because then I would dye up this awesome neon green for the toes, but I don't. I used it all up for these Halloween for this Halloween colorway. And if you like it, it's all gone by now from my shop, from my Etsy shop. However, there will be some skeins available at the yarn store at Nob Hill. And today is Friday. I think I will drop them off tomorrow. So on Sunday, you'll be able to find them, or tomorrow later in the afternoon. I hope I'm not making, yeah. I hope I'm not promising too much, but let's say Sunday they will be at the yarn store at Nob Hill. Super fun project as usual. Just simple socks, straightforward stockinette, 2.5 millimeter needles, how I always do them. The next thing I want to show you is my Tamdhu shawl by Melanie Berg, and it has not grown a lot. Here's a little snippet. But I'm looking forward to taking it on our little upcoming vacation, and hopefully to get some progress made. I am pretty sure that this is going to be pretty giant when it's done, but that's okay. I like big shawls. I like them big. So the Tamdhu by Melanie Berg. Sorry, I'm not telling you anything about this. My yarns, and hopefully you're not getting super bored, but my yarns are a La Jolla, I think it's a La Jolla sock yarn, and two custom dyed ZiaWoolz dream catchers to match that other skein, and I love how they play together. Here's another project that you have seen before, and I maybe knitted only 2 rows or 4. Not enough to take it off the shelf and bring closer to the camera. I think I'll do that when I have made a little bit more progress, just so it's a little bit more interesting for you. The next thing I want to show you is my beautiful yellow brick rodeo sweater. And I'm struggling a little bit to record and have enough lighting, and so I last night I did not put this on another needle, the body, so I could put it on again the way I did for the German podcast. Sorry about that, but I'm still in love. I think it's a brilliant pattern, and I can't wait to be able to wear this. The yellow brick rodeo sweater. I'm making this on 3.75 millimeter needles, but the ribbing up here I did with I downsized. I went down with a needle to a 3 millimeter needle. I think that is just a little, makes it a little more crisp. And it fits me wonderfully. And so where to start? It was a little bit easier yesterday when I was wearing it. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Should have taken the time to knit half around. Okay, where do I start? Modifications and the beauty of a circular yoke. Knitted top down. For one, of course, you can try it on all the time. And I, of course, made a few modifications. I love the yarn so much, this storyteller yarn. And so I decided I want at least one more section down here. And I thought, okay, I don't need to start my sleeves yet, so I'm going to do that. I did that, and I would have had, was I making a larger size, also to increase the stitches. So I thought, okay, I'm adding this other section, so I'm just going with the instructions for a larger size, which was just not smart, because then I had too many increases and it would have ended up way too big. I mean, those were the instructions for the bigger size. I should have figured it out. The other thing I changed was I did not switch needle sizes. I actually did it initially. I went to a size. Gosh, why can I never figure it out? I think it's a size down, because it comes from assuming that your gauge is tighter with the slip stitches up here. But as I started doing that, I thought my gauge is consistent, and I paid attention not to tension my yarns too much up here, so I'm going to be good. So yet again, did I rip back? So I had started those, I had done those crazy increases, rip back. I had done the needle size down, and I ripped back, and now I'm knitting with the same needle size that I used up here. But that's, of course, up to you, and it's nothing that she says in the pattern that you should do. Then a few things came to me that I thought were so interesting. For one, I realized that it makes complete sense to have a lot of stitches cast on under the arms, because if you didn't, you would, and you pull your sweater down here, you would get weird folds here. That's one thing. Then the other thing that I knew, of course, I mean, you can figure that, everybody can figure it out. Of course, when I knit in the round and my increases are spread out, not like for a raglan sweater, but they're spread out across the round, then of course you can make your sleeve as wide or as skinny as you want. And that's what I did. I looked at the stitch count that was given for me for my size, because I had made my sweater bigger, because I wanted the body not as fitted as as you can see it in the model. On the model on the project page for the pattern. I just like my sweaters looser in general. And so, of course, then I also would have gotten a wider sleeve for that larger size, which of course I don't want, because I do like my sleeves tight. So what I did was I counted I really just I measured how wide I would like my sleeve. I counted my stitches up here as I was still working on the yoke, and then I Yeah, I did some math and I figured out the stitch count that I would like to have for my version of this sweater. And I realized also for the size that I was knitting that there were going to be too many stitches under the arm just because I'm not for real that larger size person as I was knitting the size for. So I did my math. I came up with my new stitch count for the sleeves and figured it out with the changed stitch count for that I cast on under the arms. Another thing that you do want to take into account is my row gauge was off, and it mostly is when I measure gauge. But in this case, the beauty was that I did not pay attention to row gauge at all, but the designer gives the measurement for every size from here to there. And that's where I took the measurement for my true size, not the size of my sweater. And that's where I actually started the sleeve because I didn't want this to be down here. Don't like it. I mean, of course, it would also mean that your sleeve is very wide, but I did not want my very tight sleeve to start down here, to keep going. Yeah. It's hard to explain, but I hope it makes sense for you. All in all, still super in love with this and looking forward to blocking it because I think then the yoke will be even prettier. Right now it's a little bit crinkly. When I put it on yesterday, I realized I'm not going to need a lot more in length. I'm going to have probably about 2 more inches, and then I'm going to start my ribbing and do just a few rows like on the neck. Not so sure if I may look at the pattern or maybe I won't. That's just how I roll. And I just hope I explained this well enough for you to make sense out of it, because I did communicate to Marina of the Strawberry Patches podcast. She's in New Zealand and she's also struggled with a sweater pattern where she wanted to knit a larger size, but she's like, why? I don't want these giant sleeves. I don't like it. I don't want them hanging down here either. So hopefully this clarified it for everybody out there and also for you, Marina. So special hello for you. All righty. Let's put this aside, and I hope I said that this is the ZiaWoolz Dreamcatcher yarn, a fingering yarn, and it is dyed in the beautiful new colorway. This gem is my jam. It is. That's the name. Okay. Now I have something else that I want to tell you, which I thought that was a very interesting thing that I learned about color, because don't ever think that we ever stop learning. I've been dyeing for many years now and I'm knitting lots, but I still learn like we all do. And I am talking about my new birds of a feather. So the story is that I have a friend in Germany who, when she found out that I'm gonna make another one, she said, "Oh, let me know when you start your shawl. I want to knit with you." So I sent her a message. I'm going to start. She sent me a message back. I started. Beautiful colors. Sent me pictures. La da da. Whatever. Long story short, yesterday I started before I recorded the German podcast. And I made this giant progress and had this tiny triangle when I filmed. Whatever, that's the way we roll yet again. I continued a little bit in the evening, and I want to show you what happened. The yarn I'm using is ZiaWoolz Velvet Baby Suri Alpaca Silk Blend, 50-gram skeins, kind of like a lace weight. And I was, with my math, I figured out that I should be okay with one skein of Sugarloaf to combine with the 2 skeins of velvet. And I'm using the velvet just because mohair itches me. So as much as I love the fuzzy, I've given up on it for myself. And then I had my Sugarloaf, which I thought yardage wise, this will be fine and it's going to be a great shawl. I'm going to make it like I did my first one, the yellow one, kind of like in shades of yellow. And it was just my yellow version was very much not high contrast, because that's what I like. And when I saw, wow, I have a pink skein of this and I have the pink velvet, I'm going to combine them because I really want a pink birds of a feather. But then as I started knitting, some stitches already fell off. I realized this is not going to work, because in this case, the contrast is not enough. And the yellow version, let's just call it that, the yellow version, which is right now, I can't show it to you because I gave it as a model to my yarn store here because they got all the velvet yarns. That one has, I used honeysuckle in combination with the velvet. So even if there's not a high contrast in color, in addition to the color variation you have, or the color difference, I should say, you still have on top of that a silky yarn, which gives you quite the different look compared to this, because Sugarloaf is also a fuzzy yarn. I adore Sugarloaf. I've said it many, many times. But when you put the two together, they're both kind of like a fuzzy yarn in a way. And with this one, you are lacking the silky sheen compared to the honeysuckle. So I think it's a combination of these two being too alike, and plus this one lacking the silky sheen. So back to the drawing board. Don't we all love a good reason to dig into the stash? This morning, what I did, I cleaned up my giant work table out in my dye studio. I not just cleaned it up, I cleaned it, I wiped it down, and I spread out all of my hand dyed yarns stash. And on the bottom, it's one bin, and it says hand dyed best on the outside. So I know immediately where the treasures are. So I thought, okay, I'm going to spread them all out, which was really fun. It always is, right? When you see your most favorites, they're my favorites. Yeah. And on the bottom of that box is hedgehog yarns, because I just really love their yarns. That's just the way it is. So I ended up deciding on these two because I don't have enough. What? Oh man. There is a colorway which Tia once gifted me. It's by Ms. Babs, and I think it's called Deep Sea Jellyfish. That would have been just simply fantastic to combine with this, but I have only one skein. I have another favorite one by Stitched Together, but again, only one skein. These two are two different colorways, but they're so alike. I think it won't really show too much that it's two different colorways. Let me tell you what they are. So these are going to be wound later. And this is Hedgehog Fibers, Boombox, and Heyday. Yeah, I'm very excited. I think I made a great decision to abandon that, and because you want to enjoy the knitting. Yeah. So that's my Birds of a Feather by Andrea Mowry II in pink. I wanted one in pink, but now, I almost soaked yarn to dye today for this, but then I thought, gosh, you have this giant stash, dig in the stash and find something nice. And so I did. Hopefully I'm going to start this today. So you know how it is when we go to a wool festival, somehow most likely you are going to walk away with more yarns to feed into the stash, but also you get inspired to, start new projects, do certain things, whatever. And for me, it was actually two things that kind of came home in my head with me. And one of them was that I wanted to spin again, which I haven't done in quite some time. And I saw so many fibers. I didn't buy any fibers because I really felt like I have so much at home. I would love to spin up something that I have at home. But I have that yarn started, which is very special to me. I got the fibers from Kyle, who's in the south of Albuquerque, who raises sheepdogs and who has sheep to work with his sheepdogs. Really funny. I just love that whole concept. But the sheep that he has have really a very fine, they produce a fine fiber. It's Rambouillet. So 2 or 3 years ago, he gifted me fleece, raw fleece from his sheep. And I processed that, and you may remember I had to scour it, to wash it in the special way for the greasy sheep wool. And because he's not into the wool, of course he loves his sheep and all, but he does not raise the sheep to produce wool. So those fleeces were quite dirty. And not just dirty, greasy, dirty, but dirty, like little bits of grass and hay and whatnot. And so when I started this journey of preparing that wool, I also wanted to learn to work with wool combs. And that is the best way to get rid of those bits of hay and impurities that you actually, if you would work with a drum carder, and you may remember I have a drum carder, but if you used that, you would just embed this kind of dirt in your bat. So I don't think, I was going to say to make a long story short, but it is a long story. It's just the way it is. And if you remember, I've talked about this in the past quite a bit, and you have been with me on this journey. And the last thing I showed you was actually this little skein that was my test skein, first one that I love so very much of this yarn. And what you do is when you comb the wool, you can then pull off the fibers into a certain length of a combed top, about this long, and I wound them all up and put them in a bin and kept them. And I had already spun 65 grams, and maybe on the next bobbin I had maybe already spun 20 grams. And when I came back from Taos, the next or the second day, I filled up that bobbin, and I spun the rest of my hand combed top, and I plied it into a 2-ply yarn. And this is something that I have left. It was sharp just a second ago. Now it is, right? Okay. So this was kind of like leftover, so I'm going to throw that away. I just thought it was interesting to show you. But my yarn is washed, and because I felt that the yarn was still very greasy, I washed it very hot with dish soap, and then I moved it to an equally hot bucket of water without soap, and I repeated that to get rid of the soap, but also at the same time to get rid of some of the lanolin, even though I loved spinning it with the lanolin and I love the feel, and it still is greasy now. And the reason why you go from hot to hot to hot is that if you went from hot to cold, that's how you could felt your yarn, especially if you have in combination with the soap. The change of temperature, the heat, but then also the change of temperature. Yeah. But without further ado, I'm sorry, kitty cat. Here's my skein of yarn. And I so very much wish that you could touch it and feel it and also smell it. It smells very sheepy. It is very squishy, and due to the nature of the fiber, you get you have this springiness, and I just love it. This to me is so special, and I'm very happy. And to be honest, the combing, I had barely any dirt that I had to pluck out. And when I say barely, I mean barely. Really, really barely. And when anything, whatever was left in there, it was maybe because I made a mistake. Fuzz. You should not stick your nose into yarn and expect your nose not to itch. So yes, that's my very special yarn, and I'm super happy that I got it done, and now I can put it added to the depths of my hand spun stash. Oh, I did not tell you how much I have. One more thing to add. I had 2 bobbins with, I had 2 containers with 65 grams each. After spinning and washing, I lost 8 grams. And this skein of 122 grams has 620 yards. I'm sorry, I keep seeing cat hair. And it's so funny because you spin this And you think, wow, this time I've really nailed it. I've spun a lace yarn. But 620 yards on for 122 grams. That's a light fingering. One thing finished. Love it. Next, I would like to show you something else I was inspired to tackle when I come home. And that is a hat by Alyssa Latucci, who is essentially a neighbor of mine. I did not meet her. She was not in Taos, at least I don't think so, but my friend Lisa was knitting a hat from one of her patterns, and I think Lisa used Cormo yarn because for some reason I got that Cormo stuck in my head. Cormo is a breed of sheep with fairly short fibers with a very high crimp, and it's a really fine fiber. And so I had Cormo in my head. I loved the yarn that Lisa was using. Sadly, I didn't take a picture of her hat. She was making the bear wallow hat. And it reminded me of this. Do you remember this? I do not know when I made it, but I made this beautiful hat out of a great color. I love orange, as you may know. And I made it out of my yarn, Chama, ZiaWoolz Chama, which is such a great yarn for textured patterns like this because the stitches pop like crazy. And if you want to get some, there's a lot of Chama right now at the yarn store at Nob Hill and in Taos, even though she already sold some at Mooncat Fibers in Taos at the yarn store. So what happened was I finished this hat, and only after I was completely done did I realize that I had omitted a whole section of the pattern that was missing in here. I want to say really maybe 2 inches. Probably I put it on and I thought, isn't that supposed to be more slouchy? And yes, it's supposed to be more slouchy. So forgive me, dear Alyssa, if you ever watch this. I'm sorry I butchered your beautiful pattern, because that's what it is, a beautiful pattern. But yesterday, you know what happened? It was so funny because I talked about that in German, and then I thought, and then I edited the podcast, and I saw myself in the hat, and I thought, that does not look so bad. Maybe I do not need to rip back and redo the hat, even though I feel bad about slaughtering the beautiful pattern. But look at it. I think it's really different now that my hair is long, that I can wear it. Probably before I would have looked bad, but now it's fine. I don't think I need to frog this. I don't think I will, actually. I think I'm going to focus on making another one of her patterns because I already bought the pattern. I have no idea where it is. I printed it out and it has vanished. And it is the Bear Wallow pattern that Lisa made in Taos, and she almost got it done. Almost, but she's finished by now. And I would like to use this fantastic Cormo yarn. Problem is, I purchased this from Woolly Lizard, and it's exactly what you would expect from Cormo. It's very soft, Almost got a hand spun feel to it. Very squishy, very elastic, lots of bounce. But I did not at all pay attention to the weight of it. I just bought what I liked. And then yesterday I thought, this is probably way too thin. So, and that is true, it is way too thin. So what I will do, I think, I will study the pattern and then I will see if my solution that I thought up with, that I came up with, if I'll see if that might work, because I thought I'm just going to add one pattern repeat. So I do not use, so I don't need to double the yarn or hold it with something else, and I can have that pure Cormo experience. I'll report back. Let's hope that it works, what I'm thinking. Okay. Where might that pattern be? But I don't think I printed the, I don't even think I printed a picture of the bear wallow hat, but it's also, it has a pearl underground, and then it has these beautiful cables that pop out of that fabric so nicely. Wonderful. So another thing that I did yesterday was I visited my sewing machine and I made a bunch of Halloween bags, and I'm saying this because I'm out of, you know, because I want to tell you everything I've done, but also maybe the local peeps can wanna visit and pick up their Halloween bags, because, or pick up a Halloween bag, because these are so cool. I made all kinds of Halloween bags, and here they are. This is like the one that I have my Halloween socks in, very similar. And I have 3 variations of that in slightly different sizes. I probably wanted to use up all of my fabrics, and each one of them has maybe or maybe not a different fabric on the inside. Witches, bats, and more bats. And my label, and I don't, what's the word? I don't sew along the outside because I never have problems with the zipper catching that outside fabric, but I stitch along the inside. So those are the small ones. And then I like to, I think last year or 2 years ago, I came up with a sock sack size, which is slightly larger and slightly deeper and a different format. And I'm thinking that it's a good size to hide your candy from your family. And so you have your project here, and then you can have your candy here. This is one. What do I have in this one? Ooh, I love this fabric. It's a gold, orange gold, grungy. Love the kitty cats. Love more kitty cats. And love more kitty cats. Some of them have a different lining. Don't know. So like I said, if you like these, they will be also at the yarn store at Knob Hill. bats with this awesome fabric on the outside and on the inside. And then I started making, where did it go? Oh, here. I started making some tiny ones. I cut them out, I cut the fabrics and I started sewing, but I put my focus on these guys. And this is one that I'm going to send to San Diego to my daughter, of course. Love it. What did I put in this one? Oh yeah, also the orange gold grungy fabric. Nice. Yep, and let me think for a moment and see if I come up with something that I meant to tell you and that I am forgetting. See, I knew there was something else. I wanted to show you my new stash. Woo! Because don't think that this is the only thing that I came home with. Are you dreaming or what? I am sorry, kitty cat. You will have to leave this pile. Probably there's more cat hair on, lots of cat hair on this. I already put it all in. I put it all in this bin. Let's see what goes together. Wait a minute. Oh, yes. Sorry, Ike. So these two come from Mooncat Fibers in Taos, and she was, Kathy, the owner, was so sweet, and she let me pick a skein of yarn. Don't ask me which one it was, but then I bought a skein because I've had Pink Adobe Dye Works before there in Las Vegas, Nevada, as far as I know, or at least that's where I bought her yarn. And so one of these was a gift. Thank you, Kathy. And the other one will be just Happy New Stash. One is a DK. I think this is the DK. Took my glasses off. I shouldn't have. I think this one is the DK, and this is the fingering. Pink Adobe Dye Works. And then it's so funny because when you see all the yarns that I bought, you're going to say, wow, these kind of all go together. They're all in the same similar color range, even though I remember at some point I took one skein of yarn and went to a booth and specifically picked two skeins of yarn that were going to match with that one that I brought. But then it's kind of funny because they all, in a way, they all fit together, and I had a hard time figuring out later which ones did I mean to go together. Now let me show you. Also, this one. I'll tell you the yarn companies in a minute. There were a lot of hand dyers, a lot more than in past years, which I thought was pretty amazing. Let me put that one down again. So I think these were supposed to go together. Maybe they were also supposed to go with this. Or maybe they were supposed to go with this. But then there were also two more, and I hope I'm going to be able to hold them properly. Ta-da! So 6 plus 2 plus my Cormo makes it 9 skeins of yarn. I managed to stay in the single digits. That's pretty cool, right? So now I'm going to tell you what they are, in case you fall in love with something. Oops, sorry, that was loud. Love these guys. Woolly Lizard out of Cortez, Colorado. Desert Panda Fiber Arts. You know, everybody had their own spin on what they brought. I think I thought these together, maybe. So that was Desert Panda. Yes, all three. And then this is Vortex. As well as this. And I just can't totally see these together. And as you know, before I started the Tamdu, I have another pattern in my queue by Amber O'Brien, which also calls for 3 yarns, 3 matching colors. So here's options for sure. The Vortex, and this one was the pink Adobe Dye Works. Yep, and this is it. Now I really have nothing else to show you, and I can take off my hat. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you're going to stick around to see a few pictures and impressions from Taos Wool Festival. And just so you know, I will be out of town for a little bit. I'm super excited about this upcoming trip. All the people who have traveled in the Southwest are going to be like, wow, that's exciting, because we're going to go to Zion, we're going to go to Bryce, we're going to go to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, we're going to go to Canyon de Chelly, and most of all, I'm excited about Antelope Canyon. I've always wanted to visit Antelope Canyon. So, yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit longer than my usual 2 weeks before I'm going to be back to see you all. But in the meantime, I hope you are all well and enjoy whatever you're doing. I hope you have a nice project on the needles, and I wish you happy knitting. Bye. Chakalaka.